government wasn't doing. After this event, people have been debating on if another storm like this was to occur, if New Orleans should be rebuilt after. After Katrina, New Orleans should have been rebuilt. Although the city is not prepared for another big storm, New Orleans brings in too much money from tourism. The city has too strong of a culture, and the Mississippi River brings in too much money and is poised to be forgotten.
And last one before we jump into like different questions and specific arguments to defend, Ms. Hughes.
25,000 trapped in the Superdome for days. Thousands trapped on scorching highways. More than 18,000 dead. These were the gruesome effects of the Category 3 storm Hurricane Katrina on New Orleans, Louisiana. 80% of the city was flooded, in some parts under 15 feet of water, when levees and floodgates broke from the roaring water of Lake Borgne. Following the tragedy, a debate began on whether or not to rebuild the city. Even though New Orleans is a very important deep water port after Katrina, the city have not been rebuilt because it's a waste of money and effort in weakening defenses against storm surges and hurricanes.
That was a conflict there. So, Corey, I heard you argue and I heard you say that New Orleans brings in a lot of money through its port at the mouth of the Mississippi River, correct? Can you tell us more about that and tell us why that's a great reason why New Orleans should have been restored following the storm?
Well, the Mississippi River brings a lot of tourism and attraction. So, like, people from other states, they want to see how it was and how it looks.
They want to see how what looks.
The Mississippi River.
Can I look on the map?
No.
So why is it important? Why is the Mississippi port
The
important?
Mississippi River is important because it was the foundation of New Orleans.
How?
Because everything like farming and trading and all that, it depended on the Mississippi River, and most of it came from New Orleans.
Mr. Duff.
Question to those who oppose rebuilding the city. You don't rebuild New Orleans and you move the inhabitants to another place. Are there not other natural disasters that you have to be concerned about, such as in the West Coast, earthquakes, droughts, Midwest tornadoes, Northeast snowstorms? Do you not rebuild those places after certain events occur? Why would we take time and effort to continue to build those places but not the city of New Orleans?
That's for y'all. Well, I mean, we can do that, but before that, Mr. Duff has a question that hasn't been addressed or answered. And it's why is it that, why are you saying don't rebuild New Orleans, but we're taking the time to rebuild other cities that face other types of natural disasters? Jada, goes forward, nice job, step it up, stand up.
Because
Speak to Mr. Duff.
in about 50 plus years, New Orleans is going to be washed away anyway by coastal erosion. So
Good.
it makes no sense to rebuild it. It's going to be a waste of money because it's going to be washed away back.
And what makes that different from other cities?
New Orleans is closer to the water than other cities, so they're going to have a higher chance of being washed away than like Texas or
Zion, nice job.
Waters easily washed away due to coastal erosion, so like interstates, they like can't get washed away. Like it's gonna still be there after the snowstorm, so like you can still rebuild it, and it might get knocked down again, but it's just not gonna disappear.
So you guys are saying inevitably, no matter what you do, one day the city won't be here.
Yeah.
So we don't have 50 years to think about how we can save the city? You're telling me in 50 years it's gone, but in that time we're just gonna wait and let it wash away? Or can we find a way to make sure that it doesn't disappear? Like if you know you have time, don't sound defeated before you even try. have we exhausted all efforts to make sure that we can keep a city that is a true national treasure? Or are we just gonna say, well, it don't make no sense to waste the money? Like you're telling me, great points. You're telling me you have, in 50 years, the city's gonna be gone. But we have time to rectify that, right?
Mr. Drew.
At what cost? At a certain point in this village, enough is enough. We've got starvation, poverty, schools need to be improved, roads need to be improved. If we're spending so much money trying to rebuild this city, why not just move it and then actually spend the money, actually spend the resources to help the people who are really in need? You romanticize this idea in this village of this wonderful city. We can move this city and actually improve daily people's lives.
You have a paragraph for that?
Yeah.
Mr. Drew, I hope you guys are listening to this.
I'm ready, Ms. Rubion.
Because of the unique culture that cannot be replicated, New Orleans should have been reconstructed. New Orleans inherited its culture from multiple races.
Hold on, hey, don't you slow down so we can really get your point here.
New Orleans inherited its culture from multiple races: Caucasians, Native Americans, the French, Africans, and African Americans. All of this culture can all be expressed all over New Orleans at funerals, parades, birthdays, celebrations, protests, and milestones. In New Orleans recognizes the importance of artistic and creative activity taking place at both amateur and professional levels. You can find art all over New Orleans, graveyards, buildings, and of course jazz. Jazz was created in New Orleans and spread throughout the nation from the start of the Harlem Renaissance. You can also imagine all that being washed away by a storm? Sure, the culture will still be alive in different parts of the country, but it won't be the same as going to New Orleans and experiencing it in its native culture and homeland. You can't get the real New Orleans experience if you don't rebuild the city.
Mr. Meekins, I have a question.
Yes.
Are we only posing questions, or are we also giving feedback?
Both.
Okay.
Both.
Your name's Asia, right?
Yeah.
Okay. I wanted to affirm a lot of what she shared, because I felt like, so affirming for you, but then also letting everyone else hear this too. The ability to pose what you have to say is your position is one thing, right? But the art of convincing people is really about giving as much supporting evidence as possible. How many people watch Law and Order? Criminal Minds?
You be doing your homework.
Numbers? Any of those shows, right? When they're in the courtroom, they can say my client is guilty or this person is not guilty. It doesn't matter that they say that. It's all the evidence, right, to get the jury to believe either way. So when you put out what you think, whether it should be rebuilt or should not be rebuilt, your ability to kind of just back it up in a robust way by sharing a lot of details or evidence is really what convinces and compels folks. So I felt like this young lady, and also the one sitting by you, to me had the most compelling statements. And interestingly enough, they have two different points. So you're saying it should, she's saying it should not. But the reason why I feel conflicted is because of the quality of what they put out, right?
Yes, ma'am.
They said it, and they supported it.
Yes, ma'am.
Do you have Michael Lockett?
I do.
Could you send him for dismissal, please?
He's on the way. Thank you.
Thank you.
Does that make sense? Yeah. So I would say, like, as you're spending time, try to really build your argument so it's well supported. But to your point, I think what you said was beautiful. And I will back up one thing he said. You can take people away, but you can't remove a culture from a people. And that was a powerful statement in his argument.
Ms. Barnett.
I say, but the reason you show is good is because people make up a police, because without the people, it's not good.
Nikhil.
One day I disagree with you because it's like, because what New Orleans, and it's like if you move New Orleans and North, you can't go on a lady and crawfish because I was closed. But you gonna do that in New Orleans?
Asia.
I have a sentence or two for that point?
Let's go!
That's right.
And feel free to put it in your own words if you need to.
Okay. If this happens, the New Orleanians will be too spread out amongst the country to create the same feeling if you were to go to those attractions, because many people won't be in certain cities to rebuild the culture in that certain state. Therefore, the loss of culture and the main attractions will be lost if they don't rebuild the city.
So here's a reality to think about too. Right now, outside of class, everything that y'all are debating is the actual struggle still happening in our city. Meaning, even though the city has been rebuilt, right? There's this tug of war between what does it mean to be actually like New Orleanian, right? What is New Orleans? What do we love? What's the history? How do you celebrate and appreciate that while also honoring new ways, you know, of like doing things or having housing, X, Y, and Z. And so it's a struggle to figure out what does a blend of both look like. Because if you go too far on the other end, you're losing what New Orleans is actually all about. It's being dictated by folks who are not from here. So how do you have people who are from here appreciate and know that they're in their own city and it still feels like home? Does that make sense? Yeah. So just think that what y'all are talking about in the paper is actually happening around you. Believe me? Yeah, for real.
What's more important, and we kind of hit on this the other day, but to back up what Ms. Allen is saying, what's more important, the physical location of where the city is, or the New Orleanians, the people that make up or that live in this place? The location of the place itself, or the people that make that up? Believe.
The people that make it up, because if you were to get rid of the city, yeah, the people they will still have the culture because people have souls, places though.
Zion, come.
The people make up the place because, like, if you just take people away from New Orleans to, like, go to Florida somewhere, and they have a funeral, it's not like you can't go down there and still have, like, that same bad traditional after somebody's funeral or something like that. It's still able to happen in that same place.
Rude.
I want to argue against that. Even though I do agree, I want to argue against that. Because, like I said, like, a lot of these people will be spread out amongst the country. And maybe many of families won't be together at the time, so they might not be able to continue those traditions that they originally had.
So you're saying because not everybody's going to the same spot, you can't recreate the same traditions and customs?
Yeah,
even if that culture is in the person?
That'll probably take years to do.
So you're saying it's a mix of the two? People and location?
Mm-hmm.
But then I could also argue that it takes years to rebuild. So which one like matters more to New Orleans? Would you rather spend your time trying to move somewhere and create the culture you're used to somewhere else? Or do you spend that time staying in the same city and trying to rebuild what you had with people who already know the culture? If that makes sense. I'm gonna come right back, Brianna.
If you like,
I ain't gonna cut you off, Ruth.
if you could like go to a different place and take your time to spread out your culture and share your culture with other people so you could build what you had at home, why can't you just like stay home and fix the problems so you can still have your culture there? You just like
Corey, yeah, Mikhail.
To go on what she's saying, you can't just
Speak up for it.
you can't just make someone like change their culture or what they're used to when you go to a new place, a new city. So I think the city is the most important.
The physical location, period. Got you. Yeah.
I agree with Brianna because you don't have to, because New Orleans don't have to wait on the government to do anything. They could do it to themselves, like we saw in the video when the lady she got together and she built houses by herself.
So the toughness comes from the people here themselves. Huh. Got you. Jada, I'm sorry, Zion, then Jada. I'll let you say that.
Why would you continue to put your money into something that's going to eventually be washed away?
I like that you posed the question. Say it again.
Why would you continue to put your money into something that will eventually be washed away?
Can I respond?
Yeah, you sure can.
Can we go to the text? Can you pull up Ms. Muse's argument, please? Second paragraph.
Give me a few seconds.
Second paragraph, last sentence, it says overall, the argument of rebuilding the city due to its port isn't all that necessary. In fact, it's irrelevant. To Mr. Williams' point, why waste the money to rebuild the city if it's gonna be eventually not here anymore? If you go back one sentence, she talks about the Port of New York. You have the infrastructure in place already in the city. We're talking about pure dollars and cents. How much money is it gonna cost to divert all of that necessary, I guess, the necessary resources to the New York port to get back to the Midwest where it's already set up? How much money is it gonna cost to, like, we're talking about wasting money. That's a waste of money. If you already have the infrastructure in place, but you're deciding, okay, we're just gonna leave this alone, let this fall, and send everything to New York. How much money is gonna be wasted to divert all of that traffic to New York back to the Midwest?
Go ahead.
I think the money gonna still be wasted. But
Exactly, so money's gonna be wasted, right?
but eventually the money shall be made back, and you might make more money going back to New York, because it's probably gonna be a bigger port, like combining the weekend.
But what I'm saying, geographically, there's no more land being made on Earth, right? We're not making any more. You can't just go out and say, oh, I'm gonna make another state. Geographically, it's gonna still cost a lot of money to get from New York to Montana or Missouri. Whereas New Orleans, the port, going up the Mississippi River.
So Zion, just to show you what Mr. LaDuff is talking about, to give y'all a visual, if we're looking at one of our sources. If you look at the Mississippi River, and we have New Orleans here at the bottom, Zion, everything is coming.
Connects all to the Mississippi River.
Correct. So to Mr. LaDuff's point, he's asking you how much money is it going to cost to divert all of these resources to send them all the way here to the port that's in New York. That's what he's trying to get you to understand geographically. I want to give you a visual if you wanted to help you with your argument.
So I get what you're saying. At some point, money's gonna be wasted, right? But strictly financially, economically, if it's gonna be wasted, let's try to save something that's already in place, as opposed to just wasting more money for years to come.
But right here, it's just a mouth, but you can still go from here and still get to Mississippi.
Right, but we're talking about, all right, let's we got avocados coming from Mexico. Bam! Bam! Oh no, let's do this. Oh! And then come here. Think about it.
Right here.
No. There's no entryway from Mexico to Kansas. This is, see how this is highlighted? This is why it's so important. This is your main thoroughfare to get there. You can't go from Mexico and just ride up and get to Kansas. You gotta go through New Orleans.
So now I want to ask y'all something, because I'm not from New Orleans. I don't think I'm qualified to answer or to have a big time, opinion on this. We watched that video and we saw it in some of our documents. And Ms. Allen, you hit on this. It was like, what does it mean to be a true New Orleanian? When we say rebuild the city, what does that mean, or what does that even look like? Because when we watched the video, the first thing that we saw that they talked about that was up and running again was the Superdome. And I get it, that's a historic mark, but we also saw that some people, even 10 years later, still didn't have their home repaired. So when we say rebuild the city, what part of the city are we actually talking about? I'm asking y'all, 'cause I'm not from here. So I'm not really sure. And that goes for you too, Mr. W. You were here before. I saw Mr. Harris speaking. I don't know what that looks like. What does it mean to rebuild the city? Like, what parts of it? What's the important part? Especially in terms of being a New Orleanian. What do you need to see being rebuilt that feels like, yes, my city is back? Ron J.
I think we need to rebuild the things that brought other culture here, like places like what they have a lot of jazz at, art and stuff.
All right, Coriel.
Like the little communities, like the Magnolia, the Mills, the Lower Ninewalk, and all that, because that's what most of the people who make up New Orleans, they make New Orleans what it is.
But that's gone now. Mikhail?
I think they need I think they need to rebuild the places that make the money. Like when we watched the video in the East, it was a mall thing. The mall. I'm pretty sure they made a lot of money.
Asia.
I agree with Coriel with rebuilding like the lower 9 wall because that was the place that got hit the hardest with the storm. I feel like they should start with the places that got hit the hardest with the storms and then move their way to the places that actually got hit the least. So like the people who actually were in the lower class communities could actually get back into their houses. Because the people in the higher class, they could already like move to different cities.
So they got the access. Okay, Jada.
That's my point. Like, instead of building part of it, build the whole thing. Because if you're not going to build the whole thing, then why build it?
Tell us more about that.
Because, like, in the video, it took the lady 10 years to rebuild a third of her house. But she only rebuilt the white neighborhoods. And they have a bunch of black neighborhoods that need to be rebuilt. And that's why they have so many homeless people.
So then that's a question to think about. When you say rebuild a city, what does that actually mean? If you're defending, if you're saying, yo, you need to save New Orleans, and we talked about the port and its economic importance, but I also hear a lot of people talk about different social reasons as to why this place is so special. So along those lines, if we're talking socially, what does it mean to rebuild the city? Because you're saying, yes, keep investing this money. And Mr. LaDuff is passionate about it. You're going to waste the money anyway. Waste it on my city. But why? Why? What does that look like socially? Where would you like to see, if you do want to rebuild, where would you like to see that money being placed if we're talking about retaining the social structure of the place? Ms. Allen.
So 3 things come to mind that I would love to pitch to y'all. And I think this is something that applies to any city, because I'm not from New Orleans. I'm from a really small town in Alabama called Selma, but it's very historic. And I think about it the same way I think about Selma and its history. I think for us as a people to understand our history, meaning like the history of New Orleans, what makes it unique, or our accomplishments, what did we contribute to the world, even to the civil rights movement. Like New Orleans had a place. People talk about Selma, Montgomery, Birmingham. There were folks in New Orleans moving and getting stuff accomplished, and people don't know that to this day. So I think any sites or things that have to do with the accomplishments in our history will be important. Some of that sometimes is a statue. Some of it is a house. Some of it is a school building, where you think about Ruby Bridges, like her walking through the doors of her school and integrating that space has to stay because it's history there, right? But the second thing is what, go ahead.
There's a church right there. Okay? Right here. Everybody come see. When we talk about the Montgomery bus boycott, Selma, Edmondson Pettis Bridge March, right? This church right here, the ACLU. Is it not the ACLU? What's the
NAACP.
No. What Dr. King started. SCLC was founded at this church, right here. Dr. King, John Lewis, a couple of A.C. Alexander, a couple of more prominent people in the city of New Orleans. Founded the organization that started the civil rights movement and getting all of that stuff done. This church right here. In your backyard. That church right there. How many of y'all knew that? So this is why it's important to understand, like you said, the culture.
Yeah.
Right?
And
Just to Ms. Allen's point, like you gotta know where you came from.
Why things are important. And I'll say this, guys, it's the reason why I think also from a standpoint of just being candid and being real, like everyone, it's important that everyone knows their unique history, right? Because there's different history that means different things for different people. So that church can mean something very major to a certain community. That community might be African American, right? There could be a whole different group in New Orleans where that church means nothing to. So that's why you have to know your own history in order to hold on to it, because there are other people holding on to their history, right? There are some statues in this city today that are very racist, and people have been trying to take down since literally the 40s and 50s, and it's 2017, those statues still exist. You know why they exist? Because people fight to make sure they're still there. So if you don't know your history, you don't know what to fight for, to keep. You know, so when we talk about rebuilding the city, part of it is like knowing your history, knowing what's important, and knowing what is important to your heritage and your people.
Ladies and gents, we have about 3 minutes until you guys get to go paint and act and sweat.
No, we don't go what?
So, this is what we're going to do. Welcome, Gene. This is what we're going to do. If not, yes.
Do you have Khalil Moore?
Yes.
Please set up for this one.
She's on her way.
Thank you.
Take a look. So listen, this is what we're going to do. We have a ton of information. It is beautiful. Not only do we have our sources, not only do we have a video, not only do we get to write full-blown essays, get feedback on those, not only do we get to like articulate our points, take feedback, answer questions, you got to hear different perspectives. Things that give you a whole other twist on maybe what your mindset was. We're gonna have one person from this team have the final words and argument to sell to your judges. We'll have one person from this team do the same. I'll give you guys 10 seconds to figure out who that person's going to be. You're going to sell your point, you're going to figure out who's going to win. You missed the chorus. 5 seconds. All right, second period, bring it back. My guys arguing, should not. Who's arguing it? Stand for the sheriff for it, brother. Who's arguing over here? Asia. You want to get a share. I don't like to tell you what to do. You bite heads off. Alright. Now y'all can shoot, so you like to hear from first. But you guys each have about 60 seconds to sell your argument.
Let's go with the antagonist on this.
Alright.
Speak from the heart, brother.
Alright.
Last thing. As I done told you, the best way to convince somebody, just like being a lawyer, is to provide as much evidence as possible, even to address where she might have some shortcomings. Let's go.
Alright. Water shouldn't be rebuilt because, as you see, the lower 9-wall, some homes are still, damaged. People moving to other places, having good times and like texting something like that. They adapting better, so watching other people try somewhere else where they might like it. They still have a lot of killing because people don't like it the way they live in. After the storm, they lost so much money, so people feel like they depressed, so they taking their anger out on killing people.
I come in for a second. You said that all people have already adapted to their state that they're currently in. But you said that, the people, once they go to that state, they'll adapt their culture to that state. How is that possible if they already adapted to their own state? Well, they have to stay called culture doctrine, so therefore they'll do because this is state. They can spread their culture to other places using culture that fusion, which means that they can bring their culture somewhere else, so they can adapt their culture with the New Orleans culture.
But Zion just said, that everybody has already adapted to their state. So it's like they all just like
I ain't mean it like they do.
It's the way you work.
Unfortunately for you guys, your minute's up.
Man, come on, we don't want
Asia, y'all side, go. I'll give you like 2-3 minutes. Go ahead, Asia. Or whoever's going over here. Asia, go ahead. Last statement.
So, the levy, you might not be able to protect the city now, but since we still got more time, like we said, 50 more years, we still got time to adapt more technology, because more technology is still being created. And so also if that city gets, like, if I say it gets demolished, like you said, there will be a loss in the Mississippi River, be shortages all across the world in food and in certain economic things. And the culture of the city will probably just be forgotten. Be like another state, another city that just be like forgotten, like Rhode Island. Like nobody really cares about that city anymore. It's just gone. That's probably just what's gonna happen. I say that's what we're building.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is our first time doing